This is a Sports Catastrophe production. Hey there, ho there. It's Jeff Cardamone welcoming you to another Sports Catastrophe on this day. And on this day, October the 5th, 2005, the NHL finally got out of their longest lockout in history and played some hockey. The first game on the docket was the Ottawa Senators and the Toronto Maple Leafs, playing to a shootout, the first ever shootout in NHL history. Now, of course, there's a Sidney Crosby picture. I know that I couldn't find a real good picture to talk about the 2005 NHL lockout, like it's back. But yeah, it's basically a little bit of context that Crosby will be later on. So, the NHL was played by lockout starting in 1992 when they nearly lost the playoffs because of trading card revenue and all that. Back when hockey cards were a big money grabbing thing. They still are, but yeah. So anyway, because of trading card revenue and a few other things, the players decided to strike. It lasted 10 days and they finally got back to hockey. They finished off the 92 season and they actually did the playoffs for the first time in June because of the whole lockout. Anyhow, that didn't help matters. In 94, the NHL had problems because the owners wanted a salary cap. The players didn't like it. The owners basically were just a little greedy and all that. Unfortunately, 94 will also be remembered as the year of 3 lockouts of the lockout. Baseball locked out, hockey locked out, basketball and football were close to having lockouts, but they got lucky. So yeah, anyway, the fact of the matter was that things were not like they seemed to be. So the NHL had the big lockout in 94-95 and started to cancel the 95 season. Thankfully, though, there was a compromise, and by January 20th, they went back to play hockey. Although it was a 48-game season, it still was a season. Regardless, the next big strike happened 10 years later. So in 2004, after a successful World Cup of hockey, which saw Canada beat Finland, Canada was shocked to learn that the players would strike. Basically, it was a lockout due to the fact that the players would not take a salary cap. They would just keep pushing it. A few other things happened. And, there were rumors that people would break, but the owners didn't really break. There were a lot of hate comments on Bettman's side. The fans were upset. So, basically, Bettman had no choice in February but to cancel the 2004-05 season, which was the first canceled season in pro sports history. It still is. Now, CFL doesn't count. I know the 2020 season was broken up. So then there was a problem. However, fans would soon grow to like other things. Major junior hockey had a major spurt. I mean, now with the lockout, Team Canada had one of its greatest lineups of all time for the World Juniors in North Dakota. And they crushed it. They crushed Russia 6-1 in the final. Like, can you believe it? And that had Ovechkin on the team. So, anyway, also, televised poker reached a spike in viewers. But that popularity would dip down about 5-10 years later. Regardless, so fans were not too pleased. Well, the NBA happened, but the Raptors didn't help Canadian viewers out by having to turn away Vince Carter and having to trade him in January of 2005. So, like, ugly. So, what do Canadians do? Like, you gotta wait for the Blue Jays, who are not really doing that well. Yeah. Americans had a lot of distractions from hockey. But Canadians, we just suffered. So the lockout happened. And then finally, in July of 2005, they decided to have labor peace. So they had to maneuver a season to start in October. It wasn't easy because logistics were too tough to handle. So anyway, the Detroit side things I don't care about. So anyway, there was a draft lottery for the rights to pick number 1. And basically, if you did well enough, you would actually, it was a weighted lottery. So teams like Pittsburgh and Anaheim would have the advantage because, they were suffering and all that. A lot of people figured that the draft lottery was tainted, that Pittsburgh was given it because of Mario Lemieux's problems owning the club. He was playing for the Penguins too. So I think to give Lemieux some kind of thing, to give Pittsburgh hockey back before it went to Hamilton. Man, Gary Bettman just doesn't want to put a team in Hamilton. Fuck. Regardless, Crosby was sent to Pittsburgh as the number 1 pick, and Crosby blossomed under Mario Lemieux's tutelage. They were teammates for a while before Lemieux got injured. So the 04-05 season began with Ottawa and Toronto, and Canadian fans were just pleased with themselves. There's another word I would use, but it's not proper. Anyhow, so TSN hyped up the game, and it was weird to see a season opener on TSN instead of like CBC or Sportsnet. But anyhow, TSN did their jobs. And Ottawa and Toronto, it was a dogfight to the finish. And Ottawa ended up using the shootout to their advantage. Oh, did I mention that the 2005 NHL lockout inspired a few changes? One of the best changes was to eliminate the center ice and the 2-line pass problems. You were not allowed to have 2-line passes. If a pass was over 2 lines, it was illegal. However, they took away the center red line for the passing and beautiful passes. Kind of like Erik Karlsson's fantastic pass to, I would say, Mike Hoffman. I think it was Mike Hoffman in the 2017 playoffs. Senators Bruins in the playoffs. I mean, that was a great pass. One of the best passes of all time. Then they went with shootouts. They went with trying to eliminate that stupid neutral ice trap that actually ruined scoring for games. They wanted a high-scoring game. So the shootout was in. Unlike international hockey, when you have 5 skaters aside, and then whoever had the most wins, but if it was tied, you can go back with any shooter you wish. The NHL did it 3-on-3. So that would mean 3 skaters aside. And if it was tied after 3 shooters, then you have a different shooter, but not the same player unless you exhausted all your forwards, defensemen, and maybe even goalies. So anyway, the first shootout happened as Danny Heatley and Danny Alfredson would ruin Ed Belfour's night as a Maple Leaf goalie. Now, of course, the 04-05 season with the shootouts, it would take till 05-06, pardon, that a month after the shootout was introduced, we had that epic shootout between Washington and New York, in which Merrick Malik, who was 6'6", and a defenseman, would shoot the puck between his legs over the shoulder of Ole Kolzig and give the Rangers one of the weirdest wins in NHL history. I kind of don't like the shootout, but it does feel a little bit on the good side. So I don't care whose opinion you're with. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond.